Daniel Wright had been working in the building for 6 months, yet most people still acted as if he were invisible. Every morning, at exactly 6:15 a.m., he entered through the side door with a small black backpack, nodded politely at the security guard, and took the service elevator to the upper floors. By the time executives began arriving in tailored suits and polished shoes, Daniel had already emptied trash bins, wiped glass walls, and vacuumed carpeted hallways that smelled of money and entitlement. He was tall, dark-skinned, and always dressed simple navy work uniform, worn sneakers, gloves tucked into his back pocket. His expression was calm, unreadable. He spoke little, not because he lacked confidence, but because he had learned long ago that silence protected him. People rarely noticed janitors, and when they did, it was often with irritation. The company was called Harrington and Blythe Consulting, one of the fastest-growing firms in the city. They specialized in corporate restructuring, mergers, and acquisitions. Their clients were powerful, their fees outrageous, and their culture brutally competitive. Respect was reserved for titles, not people. On the 22nd floor, a group of junior associates were already gathered near the coffee machine, laughing loudly. "Did you see the new bonus structure?" one of them said. "Yeah, if you're not pulling numbers, you're basically useless," another replied. Daniel pushed his cleaning cart past them. One of the associates, a young white man with slick-back hair, wrinkled his nose. "Careful, man," he said loudly. "You're dripping water all over. This carpet costs more than your monthly paycheck." The others laughed. Daniel stopped, looked at the carpet, then at the man. "I'll clean it again," he said quietly. "Just don't mess it up," the man replied, waving him off like a fly. Daniel nodded and continued. This was not new. Later that morning, Margaret Collins, the head of human resources, stepped out of her office and nearly collided with Daniel as he was mopping the hallway. Oh, she stopped herself, then frowned. "You need to be more careful. Some of us have important meetings." "I'm sorry," Daniel said. She looked at him for a second longer than necessary. "And make sure you don't linger near the conference rooms. Confidential discussions happen there." "Yes, ma'am." She walked away, heels clicking sharply. By noon, Daniel had already endured a dozen small humiliations. No one used his name. No one asked how he was. He was "Hey you" or simply ignored. 2. In the executive lunchroom, he overheard two senior managers talking. "These diversity hires," one of them scoffed. "They lowered the bar for everyone." "Tell me about it," the other replied. "Some people just aren't cut out for high-level work." Daniel paused outside the door, mop in hand. Their words hung in the air like smoke. He didn't react. He never did. What none of them knew, what no one in that building could imagine, was that Daniel Wright was not a janitor by circumstance. He was a billionaire by choice. 6 years earlier, Daniel had founded a private investment firm called Wright Capital. He specialized in acquiring undervalued companies, restructuring them quietly, and either turning them into profitable long-term assets or selling them at massive returns. He avoided press, avoided publicity, and avoided attention. Wealth, to him, was a tool, not an identity. Harrington and Blythe had caught his interest a year ago. Their numbers looked impressive on the surface, but beneath them, Daniel saw inefficiencies, arrogance, and a culture that would eventually destroy itself. Who ordered to understand the company from the inside, not through reports, not through consultants, but through observation. So he bought a controlling stake through shell companies, signed non-disclosure agreements, and arranged for a temporary internal audit. As part of that process, he took a janitorial position under a false name. Only the board chairman knew the truth. For 6 months, Daniel watched everything. He saw how people treated those they believed had no power. And he took notes. One afternoon, a new associate named Emily Carter joined the firm. She was young, nervous, and eager to prove herself. On her first day, she accidentally dropped a stack of files in the hallway. Papers scattered everywhere. Daniel was nearby. He immediately knelt down to help her. "Thank you," she said, relieved. "I'm such a mess today." "No problem," Daniel replied. As they gathered the papers, a senior consultant named Richard Hawley walked by. He stopped and stared. "Emily," he said sharply, "what are you doing?" She dropped her files. Daniel said calmly, "I'm helping." Richard looked at Daniel with clear disdain. "That's not your job. Just clean the floors." Emily flushed. He was just being kind. Richard cut her off. "Kindness doesn't pay salaries here. Get to your desk." He turned to Daniel. "And you don't distract employees?" Daniel stood up slowly. "Understood." Emily glanced back at him apologetically as she walked away. That evening, Daniel stayed late, sitting alone in the break room. He looked at his phone and read through financial updates from Wright Capital. Everything was on schedule. The board meeting was in 2 days. The next morning, tension filled the office. A surprise announcement had gone out. A full company meeting would be held in the main conference hall. Attendance was mandatory. Hammer whispered anxiously. "Probably layoffs," someone said. "Oh, I heard we're being acquired," another replied. Daniel pushed his cart into the back of the room and stood quietly against the wall as employees filled the seats. Executives sat in the front row, confident and relaxed. Richard Hawley adjusted his tie and leaned over to Margaret Collins. "Hope this doesn't waste my time," he muttered. The board chairman, an older man named Thomas Reynolds, stepped onto the stage. "Good morning," he said. "Thank you all for being here." The room fell silent. As many of you know, Harrington and Blythe has undergone a comprehensive internal review over the past several months. Today, I want to introduce you to the individual who led that process. People exchanged confused looks. Thomas gestured toward the back of the room. "Daniel Wright." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Daniel stepped forward. The room froze. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "That's the janitor," someone whispered. "Is this a joke?" Another murmured. Daniel walked calmly to the stage. He was no longer wearing gloves. He stood tall, composed, eyes steady. Richard Hale's face drained of color. Margaret Collins stared, mouth slightly open. Daniel took the microphone. "Good morning," he said. His voice was calm but carried authority. "Some of you know me as Daniel, the janitor. Others don't know me at all. Let me clarify." He paused. "I am the founder and CEO of Wright Capital. Over the past year, my firm acquired a majority stake in Harrington and Blythe." Gasps filled the room. "I chose to work here in this role to understand the company's culture from the ground up. What I observed was enlightening." He looked directly at Richard. "I saw employees belittled based on perceived status. I heard racist remarks, classist assumptions, and a shocking lack of basic respect." Richard shifted in his seat, sweating. "I watched people who considered themselves leaders treat others as less than human." Daniel turned to the crowd. "Power reveals character. And many of you revealed yours when you thought no one important was watching." Silence. "As of this morning," Daniel continued, "several executive contracts have been terminated." Thomas Reynolds nodded and handed him a folder. "Richard Hawley," Daniel said, reading from the list. "Effective immediately. Your employment has ended." Richard stood up abruptly. "This is outrageous. Security will escort you out," Daniel said evenly. 2 guards approached. Margaret Collins was next. 4. By the time Daniel finished, nearly a dozen senior employees had been removed. Daniel looked at the remaining staff. This company will change, he said. Respect will no longer be optional. Performance will matter, but humanity will matter more. He paused, then added, and for those of you who treated me with kindness when you thought I was nothing, thank you. You were seen. Emily Carter felt tears in her eyes. Daniel stepped back from the microphone. This meeting is adjourned. As people slowly filed out, stunned and silent, Daniel remained on the stage. No longer invisible, no longer ignored. For the first time, they saw him clearly, and they understood what it truly meant to underestimate someone